Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And this evening we've got Jennifer Waters on the line all the way from Georgia, US. So we're super excited to have Jennifer on. Hello, Jennifer.
Hey there. Thanks for having me, guys.
No, thanks for coming on. So really excited about hearing about Jennifer's career. You know, she's a pro fighter. She's got a background in Kempo karate, and she's now really verging on the business side now with her own business coaching, masterminds and stuff like that. So we're super excited to delve into that on this call. So Jackson, as always, I suppose I'll let you fire off with the first question.
Thank you very much. Welcome on this evening, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks again, guys.
Okay, can you just start from the very beginning for our listeners and give them a bit of an insight into your background, where you grew up, your schooling, a bit of family life, and then eventually how you got into martial arts?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a second generation martial artist. My father started training back when he was like 13 years old. Classic story. He got beat up as a kid by bullies in school. His father had just passed away, and so he was just searching for an outlet. Started training underneath some guys that had brought back martial arts from, the war and everything. And, it was pre-Vietnam before like he got started and all of that. So he started training with these guys, knew instantly that he wanted to run a martial arts school and teach it for, the rest of his life. And, I came along later on, obviously in life, and he had a small school at that time and was training people. So I started learning martial arts at home. I think officially I was 3 years old when I first started punching and kicking for real and taking class from him. And then by the time I was 5 or 6, I was old enough to get into regular classes, and I've literally been training my whole life. I have no memory of not doing martial arts, which is a pretty powerful memory, right? Like,
yeah, I can concur with that. I started before I even went to school.
Yeah.
I think I was about the age of 3 before I even knew my left and right.
Exactly.
So I can concur with you there.
Yeah, exactly. And so, just all throughout my childhood, my teen years, we just kind of had like a martial arts school. We were really great at the whole martial arts aspect of it. I come from a background of Kempo karate. So we're a little bit more along the lines of a self-defense, blended art. It kind of falls really well into kickboxing and mixed martial arts, just the way in which we do things. And so we had that down pretty good, but the business side of things, we just kind of kept hitting a ceiling over and over again. So by the time I graduated high school, I was like, you know what, I want to do martial arts as a career, but like we're not making enough money for my dad to quit his full-time job and for me to actually make money. So I was like, look, if there's any other time to do this, I wouldn't know what other better time it would be. So I went and I literally started traveling the country and going to bigger schools and going to seminars and conferences specifically for martial arts. And, I didn't know any better at the time. The people that said, hey, go do this marketing and go do this business system, like I was like, yes, sir. And I went and I did it, and we started growing our school. And so we went from the school of like 50 people next to like a pawn shop in the not so great part of town to exploding. And now our school is bringing in over $1 million a year in U.S. currency. And it's literally a rags to riches story. So now I go and I help other martial arts school owners learn how to do the same thing and hopefully shorten their curves. They don't have to go through some of the same mistakes that I did, and also help them achieve what they want for their lives.
We're going to delve into the business side a little bit later. So I want to know a little bit more about you as a young individual, a young child moving into a young lady, and your martial arts. So which area of martial arts did you find yourself excelling in? Was it the competition side?
Yeah.
If so, the fighting or the competing or the katas forms?
Yeah. I did do forms competitions as a kid, but like I gravitated towards hitting people. I really did. I like sparring, and I was really much as a young kid, I would go and I would do tournaments. My dad would put me into tournaments. He felt very much that was an integral part of teaching me and building character in me to accept my wins and my losses. And I was very tenacious. You know, I hated losing, which made me a really good competitor. But I really excelled in the fighting side of things. So continuous sparring, point sparring. And then later on, in my early 20s, I started getting into some amateur kickboxing and stuff like that. And I was undefeated in amateur kickboxing, and actually won the U.S. Flyweight Kickboxing Championship underneath the International Kickboxing Federation. Matter of fact, one of my first big competitions in kickboxing was at the World Classic in Florida. All people from all over come to compete now for kickboxing, Muay Thai, full contact, stuff like that. And everybody was like, "No, don't enter the open division," because it was like one of my first matches as a kickboxer. And I was like, "Look, I've been doing this like my whole life. Like, just let me go." And they're like, "No, it's not the same as point karate." I'm like, "Dude, like I know. Let me go out there.
Let me get in there. Let me get in there and kick some ass."
Yeah, and they put me in a bracket with a girl who had won like for the last 3 or 4 years in a row. And I went in and I won like all 3 rounds and won the belt that year for World Classic. And then just started like, you know, working my way up and doing stuff. And then I started fighting against people who'd already had 40 fights. And it was like my 4th.
Okay. So let me just jump in there, Jennifer. Yeah. Talk us back to your first memory of competing.
Ooh, I remember.
It's going to be difficult because I can only remember the bad ones, basically getting my butt kicked.
Yeah,
as an 8-year-old and 7-year-old on the mat. Yeah.
Which is pretty much close to them, isn't it, Jackson?
I remember.
Gavin, no.
Oh, good dig right there. Yeah, no, I remember going to a couple of tournaments in South Carolina at the time when I was growing up. And I just remember watching. I actually don't remember as much about competing as much as watching the people that were older and remembering I want to be like her or I want to be like him. Because I would just like, I wasn't one of those kids that was off on the side, like just goofing off. Like I would literally sit by the rings and I would watch. I was just mesmerized by martial arts. So those are more of my memories is like, I remember this one girl, she would just beast this traditional form. And like, I remember her stances and it was insane, but I really didn't like forms, but I liked watching her. It was great.
It's great. Isn't it great the memories that you have when you're a kid, though? You know, when you're still growing, and you can still. I mean, we talk to like when we're talking to the guests and say, I can still remember the smell of the dojangs when you were a kid. I can still remember walking in and that horrible smell of sweat and a bit of blood on the floor and concrete floors that we used to train in. And those memories are still with me now. Where as an adult, I do something yesterday I can't remember what I've done.
So what about your actual first bout then, Jennifer? Do you remember anything about that?
Not my sparring tournaments or anything like that. I don't remember actually doing that stuff. I think I was probably like 6 years old when I went and I did my first like sparring tournament. Obviously, like what you said, Jackson, like I remember the ones where I lost and I lost big because it was so dramatic, I guess, at the time as a kid. But one of the lessons I actually do remember is I was a junior black belt at the time and I got put into a competition with like this brown belt. And I had gotten it in my head that I was like, this,
you're going to win because you're a black belt.
Yeah. And I was like, this little kid's got nothing. I mean, I was little, but this kid was littler than me. And he beasted me. And it was the best thing ever. Like, I was like crying and like so upset. And the one thing I learned was never to underestimate my opponent. And it sticks with me even to this day. So whatever that little boy's name is, thank you. You've helped me become a better
I can imagine he was probably more scared of you. I've been in a competition where today it rarely happens where you have mixed gender divisions. But, when I was, I don't want to give my age away, but many moons ago when I was competing as a kid, it was just you're a junior, you go in. Yeah. And I remember coming up against a girl and she was so tough. I was more scared of losing against her.
A girl, right?
Yeah. It was a big thing. The pressure was on. It was hard work.
Yeah, but the problem is if you hit them too hard, the crowd used to go boo. But if you didn't hit them hard enough, you used to get beat.
Yeah, you'd end up looking daft. Yeah, oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
And even in the early 70s in the UK, you had female and male joint divisions. My father's a well-known competitor in Taekwondo, and he's fought women in his divisions as a welterweight. Nowadays, that is absolutely unheard of. And he said some of those were the worst fights he ever had. They didn't want to, beat up on her, but at the same time, the girls weren't pulling back at all, and they would give 110%. Yeah. So quite a difficult predicament to be put in. Thankfully, we don't have to do that anymore.
No.
Thank God. Yeah.
So how defining do you think some of those moments of failure have been through your life then, Jennifer?
Oh, it's been, I think that if you really want to succeed in life, you're shorthanding yourself if you don't fail miserably.
Yeah.
You really are. You really need to experience failure in order to reach the highest levels that you can, because one, you got to get over the fear of failing. You know, you have to know that you can lose or you can fail at something, and it's not the end of the world. I actually think that that's one of the reasons why some of our kids today have such a hard time coping with life.
Yeah. I
I
was going to ask you, how do you think
totally
that
agree.
translates in today's society? And you've just answered that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. I mean, I think that sometimes kids are not experiencing failure until they're an adult, which is inconceivable in my mind. Like they've never experienced failure until their boss says, "Hey, you're fired." Oh my God, they lose their minds. Like, because they've never had any kind of failure before, or they've never invested their money and lost it and then go, well, I'll just do it again. You know, like they've never had that. And because they've never had that failure as a child, it seems like the end of the world. Like that whole thing of getting beat up by the brown belt seemed like the end of the world. But I had my dad there.
Yeah.
And
Also it's a controlled failure, isn't it, to a degree? Where I think as an adult and you're out on your own, it's a failure, and it can be quite catastrophic for your livelihood, for your mental health. And if you're exposed to that straight away, it can be a challenge. Where I think the likes of yourself, myself, and Gavin, who've experienced failure in a controlled environment, I think that's one of the fantastic things martial arts can give you, is that controlled environment to fail, and then you can learn and you can grow from that. So when you become an adult and you're out on your own, actually you can deal with and cope mentally with the failures.
For sure. And I that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the fact of owning a school now and having all these kids that are here is, you know, even if they don't compete, they're still at a point where we can push them mentally and physically through the training of martial arts, where they can still get that access the same way that we all did growing up. And that's phenomenal. I think a lot of martial arts school owners don't think about that aspect. I'm very much into the fact that I'm here to change lives. Like I want to leave a legacy. And a lot of martial arts school owners are just, I'm doing this because it's something I like to do and I like to train, but they're missing the side of the fact that they really can dramatically change the kids' lives of the future. And I think if we do that, we're going to have a better society in the future.
You know, Gavin and I talk about it all the time. You're more than just a martial arts instructor. You're more than just teaching moves.
Exactly.
You are a life coach. You're a mentor.
Exactly.
And, you know, delivering those life skills, you know, I think to the students, where necessarily, particularly in today's society, I know it's the same in the US as it is in the UK, you know, you don't get those same life skill lessons from a lot of parents. And you don't get those life skills lessons through the education system anymore. So I think martial arts has really stepped up, certainly in the last 5 years, to become those life skill mentors and deliver those life skills to their students.
Yeah, but more the parents are, because of the internet and social media and everything else that's obviously exploded, especially through the COVID period as well, even more so. You know, more parents are more aware, aren't they, of these type of benefits. And I think when we all get back to normal, when the pandemic is finally over, I think there's going to be an explosion in the martial arts as well. You know, getting kids into because all they've been doing, I know certainly from in the UK, because we're in another lockdown at the moment. I've got two children. I've got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, and it's cold winter nights, and trying to get them off their the Xboxes or their phones. It's such a challenge, because that's where all their friends are. You know, all those friends. You know, it's like us going to the park when we were kids. All their friends are online, but we all know it's not doing them any good at the end of the day. And the normal sports that they normally do, you know, martial arts or their cricket or their tennis or whatever, they can't do. It's challenging.
Did you just put cricket and tennis and martial arts in the same sentence, Gavin? Oh, shame on you.
Well, I can't play cricket, that's for sure.
So talk us through what you would consider one of your biggest failures in martial arts, whether it be a grading or a competition. Just talk us through that and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, I already told you the one as a kid, but one of the more recent ones, I guess, was I took an amateur MMA fight. It was here in my city, so it really built it up. And the girl I was fighting was actually cutting weight dramatically to get down to my weight class, and I actually wasn't. I didn't hardly cut any weight at all. And that was a mistake on my part for agreeing to the fight, because I didn't take into consideration the weight difference that was actually going to be there. So I started off that way, had a big crowd, everything like that. Well, it was an outdoor event in the summertime here. There's thunderstorms like crazy, and it just so happened that the event got rained out. So we waited 2 more days before we fought. Well, in that time, she had rehydrated. She had gone back to her normal weight. So by the time I actually entered the fight, I was fighting someone who was about 25 pounds heavier than I was. Yeah. And so I went in there, and I could not match her for strength and weight because I hadn't taken that into consideration. So, I mean, I fought hard and everything like that, but I ended up getting TKO'd the ref stopped the match because I couldn't get out from underneath her and she was raining down blows. I mean, great girl, amazing competitor, you know, but taking that loss and from my hometown and having to like sit up off the mat and be like, you know what, she won, oos, you know, and keep moving forward. Like everything I taught my students, I thought that they would be disappointed in me. I really did, because, you know, they came to see Miss Jennifer fight and she's out there and pumped it up. And all I got from that was way more admiration than I felt like I deserved, just simply because of how I treated my competitor. They were like, I can't believe you actually did what you told the kids to do. And I'm like, why wouldn't I do anything different? She won. Like,
I'm not just here preaching it, you know, you got to practice what you preach, haven't you? Yeah.
But I mean, it was a rough fight. Physically, I had to recover from that. Mentally, I had to recover from that. But then it just pushed me and drove me to learn more. And because of that loss as an amateur, it's made me a better professional fighter. But I just, again, even if I wouldn't have competed as a kid, I never would have come back from that. And I think that's a lot of amateur fighters didn't compete as children. And when they lose as an amateur fighter, they're like,
you see that in a lot of MMA, because it's our opinion on MMA, great skill to have, but you're not, particularly if you're not a specialist in any one discipline, it's a quick route to get into martial arts and fight. Right. And when you don't have those groundings of a traditional martial art, whether it be a stand-up martial art or a grappling type martial art, if you don't travel that journey, you know, it's, again, anyone can be a black belt. It's the journey you travel on, isn't it, to get there? If you don't have that journey behind you, those losses as an MMA fighter or an MMA fighter can be quite dramatic, because you don't have that base training, that mental side.
This is where the ranking and obviously the belt systems are great for traditional martial arts, aren't they? Because you're constantly trying to strive for the next thing. You're constantly having to learn new techniques to get to that next level. Where in sort of MMA, you just walk in, you pay your $5 and you just go and punch the bag or whatever. You've not got that, like I say, that traditional grounding, you know. So I think it's definitely the sort of traditional background, you know, with your tenets and your, you know, the indomitable spirit and your perseverance and, you know, all those type of things that you learn in the traditional route, I suppose.
So talk us through then becoming a professional fighter then, Jennifer. How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, that was always my goal once I entered amateur fighting, is that I just wanted to move forward to be a pro. But every state's different as far as letting you turn pro. So like the two states that I fought in the most were Georgia and South Carolina, and each one required a minimum of, you know, a certain amount of amateur fights. So I finally reached the minimum amateur fights, took a pro kickboxing fight at beginning, I took the pro kickboxing fight, and then we were scheduled to take another pro MMA fight in April out in California last year. And that's when the lockdown for COVID happened.
Sure, yeah. So,
you know, the states over here in the US, we started locking down mid-March. So I had just come off a win. I had a contract. I had a $40,000 contract to fight in California, New York, all throughout 2020. And all of that came to a halt. So, you know, that's been disappointing. I really think that, especially for this year in particular, I know there's a lot of pro fighters that are still like trying to go line up fights and things like that. And I do it because I'm passionate, not because it's my day-to-day paycheck. So let's be clear on that. I do it because of that aspect. Like I love doing it and I want to push myself. So for me, taking this year and just going, you know, I'm just going to train and I'm not going to actively search for fights, I'm fine with that, because I want 2021 to settle down all around the world so that we can get back to doing what we like to do without all these other, you know, restrictions and things like that. So pro fighting is something I always wanted to do, but I went in against a professional boxer / kickboxer, and took a fight in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and did that, won that match. Did very well in that match.
So what's your preferred discipline then? Is it the ground or is it your stand-up?
Stand-up for sure. You know, I love being able to kick people and knock them out, knock them down, you know, all those types of things. So a lot of people when they see me fight, they're like, oh, she's done Taekwondo. And it's not necessarily that. It's just that the American karate and then that Kempo blend of things, a lot of the kicks look similar. And we love using our lead leg. So, you know, my dad was part of that whole great crew in the Southeast United States, like Keith Vitale, Sam Chapman, Joe Corley, like some of those guys back in the day when they were doing sport karate / kickboxing. He was right there training beside them.
Joe Lewis days.
That's where I get my stuff from.
The Joe Lewis days.
Yes, Joe Lewis. Yeah, all those guys. Yeah.
We had John Graydon.
Yeah, lots of good stuff.
You had John Graydon on the show as well. Probably
Awesome.
last year now, wasn't it? So,
Yeah,
how have you kept your motivation up for training during the pandemic then, Jennifer?
Initially, obviously, as everything was going down, my first priority was our business and our martial arts school, and then, coaching the clients that I had to work through all of it. But ultimately, my path for a long time as an owner and instructor has been to train by myself or with my father. So none of that's really changed, like I'm not taking part of a class where I have other people coming in and we're all learning at the same pace, because when you're at the top, you're at the top. Like, you have to find other ways to push yourself. So, I pretty much have been doing the same thing. I think that most, martial artists do. They train for themselves, not because there's somebody else in the room. They train for themselves. So for me, I know I'm not going to fight, in the next 6 weeks. So I'm not doing a fight camp, but I'm fine tuning. Like, if I want my kick to be here, it's going to be here. If I want to work on strength of the kettlebell, like, I'm doing kettlebell. So I'm just staying fresh in my motivation as to become a better martial artist, not necessarily because I have a fight lined up in front of me.
So when you are in fight camp and you wake up and you look at your training regime, what's the one thing that you look at on that list, the things that you got to do that week and go, oh, God, I don't want to do that?
Yeah. So I have a personal trainer named Mr. Jones, and Mr. Jones loves to do conditioning with me. I absolutely hate the bike stuff that I have to do, where I get on the bike and I'm like, I hate the bicycle. I hate it. So which is crazy because my husband got a Peloton and I tried it. I was like, maybe this will be enjoyable. It just brings back all those memories. I'm like, I can't.
It's hard work. It took me, once I stopped competing, I used to be down at under 76 kilos. I sit now about 90. So, and if I don't do something, I'll be up to 110 quite easily.
Oh.
I can do that quite easily.
Yeah.
So I got into the road biking, but for the first year I had to, I was like, oh God, bike again, to get out on the road. And now I actually enjoy it, which is good.
Sure.
But for the first year it was it was alien to me, and I didn't enjoy it. The movement of the legs and just, I suppose, the repetitiveness, and it's the more endurance piece because it's not a burst.
Yeah.
You can do your heel work. It's you're just constant, aren't you? And it's something a martial artist is really not used to. So yeah, I can concur with you, but persevere with it. Particularly as you get older, you might want to save those hips and knees for something more gentle. Yeah, so don't rule it out.
Yeah, years of kicking. So, you'll be like Bill Superfoot Wallace. You have to keep replacing your hips. So I'm interested to know how did you feel when I suppose moving more into the business side a little bit then, Jennifer? How did you feel when you first heard about the COVID thing and all these schools having to shut? Because obviously I'm a full-time instructor. That was sort of my main living. Jackson has a job as well, so it wasn't quite the same for him. But certainly for me as a school owner, when everyone was starting to shut and you started to hear everyone in lockdown, and I'm just interested to know how you felt, because it was a shock to the system for so many businesses worldwide.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the very first things that I did when I started realizing, okay, this isn't localized to one region, like this is now going worldwide, is I started going, okay, if we could not be inside our building, how would we survive? What would be the next steps? And so we just started, my whole entire team. I was like, look, it's coming. We're going to have to shut down. I think the advantage for us is that my state didn't shut down until 4 weeks after everybody else really started the major lockdowns. Sure. So we knew it was coming. We had time.
It started migrating south there. So one of our good friends and one of our partners, Mike, was up in New York, and at the very start of the pandemic in the US, that was hit pretty bad. Yeah. And in his area, there was about 20 schools. I think there's probably 2 that have survived. It's been pretty horrific for him.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, one of the things we encouraged, like our clients, we encouraged everybody in all the martial arts groups was, look, guys, number one, just because you're going online, you don't need to discount your classes, because you discount your classes, you're going to be running out of cash coming in the door to survive for later. And so I don't know how many schools started going, well, we're going to cut people, or we're going to have them stop paying for tuition, but we'll still teach because this will be over soon. My mindset was the opposite. My mindset was, what happens if we're here for 6 months to a year? and a year later we're still here. So you know, we shifted completely. I still, even though my state is open, I still have 100 students that are taking virtual classes. And honestly, no matter which direction our country goes in the next couple of months, we're ready. I'm not worried about it. We can switch back to virtual like that, and I can continue to you know, roll out what we need to. Does everybody like virtual? Obviously not, you know, from an instructor standpoint. But here's what I will tell you: people that are, you know, older than me, you know, or that have been involved in the martial arts a really long time are having such a difficult time doing this. I'll tell you who's not. My teen instructors, my I call them kids. They're not really the kids that are in like their 20s.
You're young adults.
Yeah, like they have no problem with this. It's mind blowing because they've grown up that way.
Yeah.
And they don't have a problem with it. They're like, oh, okay, it's no worries. You know, we'll just do blah, blah, blah. And they're like on the computer doing the Zoom. And man, like if we could adopt the mindset of a child, then we could accomplish anything, because children never fear things that have to do with learning and growth. They're inquisitive. They're curious. Sure. And so I think that we as martial artists have to do that too.
I think that's something across martial arts. And you know, dare I say it's hereditary within martial arts, because predominantly your 7th dans, your 9th dan grandmasters, you know, they're old people. You know, they're in their 60s, they're in their late 60s. So embracing that technology piece, I think for a number of the senior members of martial arts organisations has been very difficult.
Well, they've really struggled, haven't they? And we've seen lots of them fold here in the UK again. Yeah. And I know certainly I remember when in the pandemic, and we'd been over to the States. When did we go, Jackie? It was January, wasn't it?
This time last year,
yeah. It was this time last year. Was in and was with Melody and a few of the skills guys over there. And I remember Melody, I was chatting to her, and she always said one thing that always stuck in my mind was, you know, we're always on the offense. We never look like, it's like, you know, things can happen negative. You can't control. You've always got to be on the offense. And I suppose for me, I tried to take that approach straight away with Michael, probably as you did, Jennifer. Rather than discounting my classes, I was actually going to put them up at one point, because I was actually doing twice as much.
Working more, weren't we?
Adding so much more value. You know, so some of my students are maybe only once a week normally, or twice a week. Well, actually, we're getting me on their living room TV twice a day, and I was entertaining their kids twice a day. You know, doing my classes, etc. And the parents were like so grateful for the fact that you was really putting that effort in. But it got exhausting.
Certainly in the UK when we locked down, there were a lot of parents that were left to homeschool and work at the same time. So you know, having that ability to at the same time, a bit of routine in the day, put the kids in front of their screen to do their activity, one, to burn a bit of energy out, but also to provide that bit of discipline structure to them, and 3, to provide a, dare I say, out of the family environment authoritarian figure, which you know, to make sure that they're continuing with that discipline, because you know what kids are like. I don't know if you've got children, Jennifer. They never listen to their parents anyway, do they? Really? If they do, it's gone within 5 minutes. So to have someone else in that, you know, adding huge value, I thought, and particularly during the lockdown period. And as we've moved out of the first lockdown into the second, and now we're into our third, and we're doing the same thing again. I think the parents that we have as our martial arts students, you know, they appreciate that. So yeah, I think they're adding great value. And again, it's something that other sports can't do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I do feel sorry for things like judo, for instance, and jiu-jitsu, which are purely grappling arts, because you can't really. Okay, you can do a bit of it on a Zoom class, but it's never the same. Least obviously in taekwondo and karate, and
you can't do tennis or cricket on Zoom either, can you, Gavin?
You can. I've got a wee mate.
Do you even know what cricket is, Jennifer?
Yeah, it's your sport
of you do.
baseball, right?
Most Americans don't. Yeah. It's like baseball, but much more boring.
So Jennifer, tell us a bit about your business then. So you do a big martial arts coaching program. My ears pricked up when you said that your schools do £1 million revenue a year, which is a huge figure to be bringing in. So how did you go from going back a little bit to your early days? How did you go from those seminars to integrating what you had learned in your schools, and how did it grow from there?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that if anybody wants to grow in business and life, whatever, you need to have a mentor. You need to have someone who's pouring into you.
Totally agree.
You know, it is extremely difficult to go it alone. You know, you're going literally, no matter what area of your life, if you start going it alone, you are walking blind. You don't know what to look for. You don't know which direction you really should be going. You're just guessing. And so for me, I had a business mentor in martial arts. And I had one, you know, and different ones for a good long time until like, I was like, okay, I think I've got this martial arts side of things, you know, really down pat. The systems are working and things like that. But I'll be honest, I still have coaches. I have coaches in different areas now. And, you know, whether that's life coaching, relationship coaching, business coaching, these are areas that I feel are very important for me personally to grow as a human.
Sure.
And for business, the business side of things, you know, I really started in 2015. We were doing so well. I really had some martial arts schools that were like, hey, can you start working with me? And so I started dabbling, just kind of working with them here and there. But honest and truly, going worldwide, I started getting clients during the pandemic in 2020. I started, you know, working with clients in the UK and Australia, all across the United States. It's really good thing to be able to also pour into other people, because I feel like the philosophy that we as martial arts instructors have of, if I teach it, I learn it twice, right? So I teach it to the person because I've learned it that way, but as I'm teaching it, I unlock more. And honestly, I think because of the business coaching side of things and showing people what we've been able to do, how to implement it, is one of the reasons why we keep staying on top, because I keep going, wow, I just taught this. Now I learned it better. Now I'm going to go implement a different way of doing this with my school. And it's really helped us phenomenally to be able to do that. So for those people who are interested, they can go to learnwithjennifer.com, and it'll give them all the information about the hybrid martial arts coaching program. And we really just try to blend that old school integrity with new school business strategies. And that's what I firmly believe in.
And we're huge advocates of mentors. And like yourself, you know, we ask a lot of people that we talk to and work with, you know, would you have become a black belt on your own? And the answer is no, of course not. Would you become a successful fighter on your own? The answer is no. So without, you know, you may be a fantastic martial artist, but without someone to coach you on the business side of martial arts, how are you expecting? And as you've mentioned, it's a hit and miss. And, you know, we talk to a lot of people that don't actually see the value of having a mentor. You know, nine out of 10 people we talk to, you know, have you ever thought of mentoring? You know, they look at you as if, whoa, why do I need a mentor?
Yeah, I know everything. Why do I need a mentor?
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is that as martial artists, we are so, like, I remember when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu first started coming to the United States. You know, my dad was one of the first people who was ranked underneath Rickson Gracie as a blue belt. And now he's ranked under Carlos Machado as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And when it first came here, everybody was going to go find the information, because it was new and it was a new art, it was a new style. You know, when Kali got really big, everybody was like, sticks and knives. And MMA, oh, we got to go talk with, you know, Jackson Wink from Jackson Wink MMA Academy, like all this, right? We're so fad-minded when it comes to martial arts. And so many school owners don't take that same mindset and then apply that to business, which means they're not going to be in business to pass along what they've learned. Yes. And that's a travesty right there.
And it's that fine line as well, isn't it? Becoming a good martial arts school who's delivering good programs and good students to ones that are purely in it for the business and the money. And you see them as well worldwide.
The old Cobra Kai.
Yeah. So on that then, what would you be, Jennifer? Would you be a Miyagi-Do or a Cobra Kai?
If you had Miyagi-Do all the way, man.
What?
All the way. Miyagi. No, we actually have, it's horrible. I know it is, but like, that's our code word for, we have another type of school that we don't particularly like because they're very money minded. They don't care about the quality of the students. And even when it comes to their safety, and it really makes me angry. It really does. Like, you should not be doing this with people and putting them in harm's way when they have no idea what they're doing. And those types of schools, number one, I don't work with them. So if you are one, like, don't come see me. Secondly, it just does such an injustice for the rest of us who really care about our students mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it.
Yeah, because if done right, you can do both. You can make a good living from it, and you can still get good students out the door, you know, in your studio. And I think it is. I totally agree with you. It's a shame. It's because they wreck it. They wreck the industry when you get people that have got given black belts after a year. you know, and they've got their black belt, and then they come and then they leave, and then they go walk into your school, and you ask them the question like, so what, you know, what style have you studied? And they say, oh, I've just done martial arts. I'm just like, yeah, but what sort of martial arts? Oh, just martial arts. And then you say, well, you know, okay, well, show me a side kick, and they what's a side kick? And it's like, come on, you know, seriously, you know.
It's that kick where you turn sideways and your toes like point to the side, or is it the one where your toes point up?
I don't know. In my school, I still have to try and teach them that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I think that's an important quality is to have good quality students and to pass that along. You know, and here's the thing, you can only scale to the level of your organization. So a lot of times these places that are just taking in cash, they're not organized. Because if they were, they would have quality. Quality always follows organization. Yeah. And that's an important concept to keep in mind.
I always, for me, my big gripe is black belts. They're rubbish. That's the thing for me, because you know people can, you know, people come along to your school and they might inspect it. They might peer through the window to have a look at what type of instructor you are or what type of school you're running before they ever bring their kids to you or whatever. And if they're a red belt, if they're a blue belt or a green belt, people don't really, non-martial artists, if you like, don't really know what those colors mean. But everybody knows a black belt means someone that's, you know, that's superior, that's a high ranking. And when you've got black belts,
fear and darkness.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, imperviousness to darkness and fear. So, and you put me off my train of thought now. Yeah. So yeah,
he's worried I'm going to tell you about the story of Gavin getting scared in the dark. That's why. It's one of his fears.
I still leave my landing light on, mate. You never know. You never know who's out there. But you know what I mean. So they're walking in and they're looking at these kids kicking them, and if they're rubbish and they can't do basic simple kicks and blocks, then you know I just think it looks bad on the school, doesn't it? And it looks bad on you as an instructor. You know. It
does. Definitely.
So what's next then for you, Jennifer? You sound like a very driven young lady. You must have something else up your sleeve that you want to sort of try and achieve next.
Yeah, I mean, this year I've got some really great projects they're rolling out. I'm really going to be focused a lot on school owners that, you know, especially now, so many people have had their student population reduced down. You know, some schools that had 300 students are down to 75 again. And so I'm rolling out some great things. They're going to be in store for those people that maybe they've had to reduce their size, or maybe they only got like 75 to 100 students, because I think there's such a need for, you know, it seems like some of the giants in the industry are surviving. The ones that had 500-600 students, maybe they dropped a few hundred, but they're still surviving. But everybody else, they were at that 200, boom, they're down. Where do they go from here? And so that's what I'm going to be working on, is really just this initiative for small martial arts school owners to get them back up after the ravaging of this pandemic. It is not a good thing for martial arts schools to close.
No, and I think more than anything, I know it's getting motivation back, isn't it? Because, you know, I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of clubs in the UK, because we obviously do things slightly different over in the UK. Yeah. We're not. You go to America, you know, and every street corner, every block has a martial arts school on, or they've always got their own purpose-built facilities, etc. In the UK, I would say probably the vast majority. It's slightly changing a little bit now, but you know, the vast majority run their classes out of schools or village halls or church halls,
right?
Or whatever. And I would say probably the majority have, you know, especially the part-time schools, have sort of between 50 and maybe 100 students.
Right.
And that's a good sized school, I suppose, really, you know, for in a lot of the villages and the towns. Yep. And when you've gone from 100 students that you've built up over a period of maybe 5-6 years, and now you've got 10, it's so demoralizing. It's just how do you get the enthusiasm back to that instructor to come back and say, you know what, I'm down to 10, I'm going to get back up to 100 or whatever, when a lot of them are like, you know what, I'm done, I'm going to leave it, and I'm just going to go and get myself a job. You know, I think there's a lot of that going on at the moment, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And if one of those school owners is listening right now to this podcast, let me just encourage you. People need you. They do. There is a void that is being created in our society right now. There's more disconnect than there's ever been, and there's more people searching, and they're searching for anchors. And you, my martial arts school owner friend, whoever you are that anchor. And when you decide to cut ties and give up, so do they. So if you believe in bettering the next generation and you find in your soul that this is what you're meant to do, then find a way to make it work. Whether that means taking a part-time job so you can make ends meet for your own family, but find a way to keep that flame alive, because they need you. The world needs more people like us to stand up and do the right thing when everybody else in the world is closing their eyes to it.
Yeah, definitely. Good. Yeah, great words there.
I think on that note, it's probably a good place to start winding up, I suppose. So one question we always ask our guests, it's normally Jackson that actually asks this, but I'm going to ask it today, is what's that one thing that motivates you?
The one thing that motivates me, I'm a Christ follower, so I believe that I've been put on this planet for a purpose, and to be able to shine a light and show love to others that they wouldn't have been able to have otherwise. And so for me, my life's mission is to change other people's lives. I do it through the vehicle of martial arts. So my motivation every day is that I can have some kind of impact or some kind of change. And I realize that's not everybody's motivation, but for me, it makes me extremely happy when I can go, I taught that person how to do this. And even if they do it better than me, I am extraordinarily happy, because that's what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to teach. I'm meant to pour into others' lives and to show them that there is a better way that they can move forward in their life.
Oh, fantastic. And then just to wrap up then, I'm not even going to let Gavin ever get the final question. It's not happened in the last 2 years, so I'll be damned if it's going to happen tonight of all nights.
Yeah.
He
always wants the last word. Always wants the last word, Jennifer.
What advice would you give to a younger self, knowing martial arts now, knowing yourself and the experiences that you had? What advice would you give to a younger self, an 18-year-old?
Oh, man. Yeah, definitely, especially after this past year. I would definitely say that not everyone that you meet is meant to be a part of the inner circle that you have. I would say that it's very important to separate people out into people that you would say are your constituents, the ones that are going to be there and clap for you when you're doing great, but aren't going to be there when things are rough. Mm-hmm. And then you've got your people that are your comrades. They're for you when things are going good for you. But as soon as, their mission and your mission don't align anymore, they're going somewhere else. And that's okay. It's okay to have those people. And then you have your confidants. And your confidants are people that are going to be there with you. They're going to be at the hospital with you. They're going to be wherever you are just because God's put them in your life for a reason. But not everybody deserves that position. So even now, if I could go back and I could tell her that, the younger Jennifer, I think that she would still need to experience all the things that she's experienced to get that realization today. So I would tell her that, but I don't know that she would listen.
She probably wouldn't listen.
Definitely.
Okay,
thank you guys so much.
Jennifer,
I really enjoyed it.
No, thank you for being on the show this evening. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. It really has.
It's been brilliant. Are you off to the martial arts show in July?
I'm not exactly sure yet. I need to find out what the travel arrangements are. I guess we'll figure that out in a few weeks from now.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have our vaccine passport soon, because we've got the world's fastest rollout program of the vaccine in the UK at the moment.
Oh my goodness!
I think we've already done something like 2 million people.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
no, yeah, we're on responders only over here.
Sorry.
First responders only over here, medical professional. Yeah. Then it comes down to the wee folk, the rest of us.
Just the mere mortals last.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll be COVID safe, and fingers crossed. I think we're all praying, aren't we?
Yeah.
Come June, July time, things will start moving back to normal.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so thank you again, Jennifer. Really appreciate taking the time this evening. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jennifer. Take care. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews, and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.